Okay, welcome to a quick video on how to approach this Wordsworth 5 method paper. It's powder day, so I hope everyone's out there enjoying Baldy with their friends and their advisees. Let's get to this so that we can write this paper and reflect on the connections between interpreting a series of poems and ambiguous, capacious phrases in poems, and how to use interpretive methods to apply pressure to the meaning of those ambiguous phrases and ideas, and how we do that with the Constitution. Equal protection of the laws and liberty are just as ambiguous and capacious as the philosophic mind in Wordsworth. So I've created a new essay question. Certainly, that original essay question is fair game for most who want to tackle the intimations ode and the moments from the prelude. To define the philosophic mind. But this one is the new essay question. I thought I would show you how to do an outline for this new essay question, which will certainly help the others who are doing the other essay question. So here's the new one. It's related, but a little bit cleaner. So it says, addressing the poems in elegiac stanzas on the death of his brother Jonathan in 1805, and the poem Surprised by Joy, which was, as Wordsworth noted, a direct reaction to the loss of his daughter in 1812. He also lost his son that year. And then A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal, a 1799 poem, a ballad that anticipates, that fabricates the loss of a young child. And I think ironically it actually happened to him 13 years later when he lost his daughter and his son. So addressing those poems, this last one, the Slumber Did My Spirit Seal, not about his daughter's death, but anticipated it and the solution to its despair. Here's the goal. Determine how Wordsworth's belief in pantheism, the idea that nature is infused with a divine spirit, man has a divine soul within him, and they can feel the confluence of those two souls in powerful moments in nature, in sublime moments in nature. That's pantheism. How that belief in pantheism saves him from despondency about his mortality and the mortality of others. So some presumptions here, that as he grew older, as he lost that visionary gleam in nature that he associated with childhood, as the prison house, quote unquote, of society closed in, he became aware of mortality as applying to others, and in so doing became aware of mortality applying to his own self. These gave him pause. They gave him also an awareness of declining powers as he grew older and more concerned with death and loss and decay. And so how is pantheism, how is this affirmation that one can intuit, can have intimations of immortality through powerful moments of nature, how do these three poems, elegiac stanzas, death of his brother, surprised by joy, loss of his daughter, Slumber Did My Spirit Seal, how do they establish the sense of loss and despondency and suggest a solution? So you got to use historicism, intertextualism, moralism, and re-response. And I show you how to do this in an outline. I also show you how important outlines are. You obviously will need to define pantheism through the intertextual concepts, which I will show you how to do. You may, of course, bring in more poems, but do not need to do so. So this topic does lend itself to bringing in Tintern Abbey, does lend itself to bringing in moments from the prelude to establish what that oneness with nature feels like, what that confluence between the human soul and nature's soul feels like and sounds like as he writes about it. But you don't need to do so, because the language that you have in A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal and in elegiac stanzas could be enough for you, but you're certainly willing to bring in other moments to support your analysis. And then I'm not going to show you how to do this, and we'll talk about it in class this week, but you should choose the most once you've written your paper, choose the most controlling interpretive methods, the ones that were most influential on the termination of meaning, okay, for your Wordsworth paper. Was it historical context, intentional commentary, and formalism? Did those control? And then what did those look like? And then choose one opinion that you've written, same-sex marriage. You can use that collective opinion. More likely the reproductive rights opinion or the affirmative action opinion, and choose the corresponding interpretive methods and compare and contrast them. What are the similarities between the two controlling methods in Wordsworth and the corresponding methods in your judicial opinion? And what were the differences? What are the gaps between literary interpretation and constitutional interpretation that should provide you with a really solid understanding of the link between interpreting literature and interpreting law, which is the goal of the course. All right, let's get to the outline. So, if we look at, it's a big question, but here is, a thesis and a plan. Obviously, an opener, great way to start would be a quote from Wordsworth or a moment in his life, and then you bridge in, you link from the opener toward the topic at hand, and then something along the lines of a thesis and a plan of it, and a plan here could sound like this. By reviewing the loss of loved ones in Wordsworth's life, and reviewing the poems that address these losses, elegiac stanzas and Surprised by Joy, and the poems that develop solutions to his despair, my heart leaps up. I'll throw that in there, a short little poem about pantheism, and a slumber did my spirit seal. We become witness, so that's our plan, that's where we're going. We become witness to a poet working through methods to retain faith in himself and the world. Notice it's not faith in religion, notice it's not faith in God necessarily, but faith in himself and his mind and the world before him and his relationship with that natural world to give him moments which he can intuit immortality in this life, and that gives him great solace. Okay, so the first poem, that was A, that was introduction. B, you've got elegiac stanzas, and I quoted a significant portion of it. You can certainly use the ellipses to edit it a little bit, but I quoted the beginning part of how he would have painted the picture had he been in youthful reverie. Right, it would have been a picture of lasting ease, Elysian quiet, without toil or strife, no motion but the moving tide, a breeze, or merely silent nature's breathing life. Such in the fond illusion of my heart, such picture would I at that time have made, and seen the soul of truth in every part, a faith, a trust that could not be betrayed. That oneness with nature, that oneness with the spirit of nature, feeling the oneness of his own soul with that spirit in nature, but not knowing how to put it into words necessarily as a child. But here, after his death of his brother, so once it would have been, 'tis no more. I've submitted to a new control. A power is gone which nothing can restore. A deep distress hath humanized my soul. And this begs for historical work, doesn't it? Right? What was that distress? Not for a moment could I now behold a smiling sea and be what I have been. The feeling of loss will ne'er be old. This which I know, I speak with mind serene. Farewell, farewell, the heart that lives alone, housed in a dream, that youthful perception of nature, that youthful belief that one is immortal. You are at distance from the humankind. Such happiness, wherever it be known, is to be pitied, for 'tis surely blind. But welcome fortitude and patient cheer, and frequent sights of what is to be born. New sights in nature, new moments of the sublime in nature of what can be. Such sights are worse, as are before me here, powerful sights like this storm at Peel Castle that he's looking at, this painting by Beaumont. Not without hope, we suffer and we mourn. So a recognition of loss, a recognition of a decreased relationship with nature, a recognition that his soul has been humanized, he feels the weight of mortality, but also in the same breath a bidding of farewell to a former way of seeing, an incomplete way of seeing the world, and a welcoming here, certainly a positive tone here of fortitude and patience and the belief of something ever more about to be, a belief that future moments in nature will allow him to intuit what he once felt almost continuously as a child, intuit the oversoul in nature and his soul in a confluence with the oversoul. So there it is, right? He's going to hope for future moments in nature, hope for fortitude and cheer with future moments in nature as a balm to his loss. Okay, well, let's look at it. How would we approach this? We got to go to the next slide. Scroll up here. I did cite those lines, and you do have to break them up if you use ellipses right there, and that's how you cite poems. But very quickly, all right, so formalism is where we always start. We always start with a clear meaning of language and the relationship between the two. So I chose Elysian, which is a great poem. It has rich connotations of heaven, of spirituality, and I would write about how the connotations of Elysian connect with Wordsworth's belief that children's spirits are closer to God and heaven before the tragedies of life weigh upon our adult souls. So what would have caused Wordsworth to reject Beaumont's painting of this stormy sea crashing into this castle and tearing it away? It would have been his belief that nature is infused with this divine, beneficent spirit, and he felt it as a child. Okay, and he didn't really appreciate the power of nature until the sea took his brother John and 200 other souls in that great tragedy at sea. And then I would have looked at the tone shift to bring, many other poetic devices I could do here too, but the tone shift is calm enthusiasm in the first few stanzas, yields to a regretful, serious tone in such happiness is to be pitied, that former way of saying, for 'tis surely blind. So serious, regretful, which shifts to a hopeful tone in the line, not without hope we suffer and we mourn. Patient cheer and welcome fortitude. There is a hope here in the end that's carried through the voice. It expresses the idea that there will be a new inner strength achieved in coming to terms with the loss of his brother, it should say. Okay, so we start with formalism. I could do more. We could look at some imagery, but that gives us a good place to go. And then, obviously, combined with formalism, historicism will give us textualism. We would lead with the facts about his brother dying at sea in 1805 as a captain, and then, more importantly than the fact, Wordsworth's reaction to this. I mean, he wrote in a letter to Beaumont in 1805, who painted the painting that inspired elegiac stanzas. He wrote this about his brother's loss and his relationship with divine providence, with the idea that God's positive will works in the world. He said, I trust in God, and I shall not want fortitude, but my loss has been great and irreparable. And here he questions the morality of God. Why have we sympathies of right and wrong, of morality towards each other, and to all sentient beings, the animals, within our influence? Why, when we have all that, why does it differ so widely from what appears to be God's notion of rule, if everything were to end there, if there were no afterlife? Would it not be blasphemy to say that however inferior we may be to the great cause and ruler of things, we have more of love in our nature than God has, than he has? The thought is monstrous, but I do not know how to get rid of it, except upon the supposition of another and a better world I do not see. So at this moment, we have intentional commentary, right? Addressing his rejection of divine providence, his questioning of the morality of God, his questioning of why man seems to be more moral, more aware of right and wrong, and treating each other well and with kindness than God does, since God has ripped through nature his brother John from him. He doesn't want to have to wait for an afterlife to develop his faith. He says that twice in there. I don't supposition of another and better world, right? But I don't want to wait that long, right, for me to engender faith. Okay, but he does mention a fortitude up here. He mentions a belief, like he does in the poem, that he's going to have to develop a faith in this world, in his mind now, and in his mind's relationship with the earth, with nature now, to bring him peace. Okay, great. The only piece of historicism I left off with was this literary historical context, and we'll get that in the next poem. All right, let's move. So intertextualism, there's a lot to develop here. In one of the great moments, you can go to the intertextual link on the website. One of the great moments is the idea that he believed in spots of time. He believed that there are moments in nature that can repair the mind. And the critic said that there are spots of time in Wordsworth refers to the sublime moments in nature that are restorative and therapeutic to the poet's mind. They exalt the faculty of memory to return the poet to former states of existence and former perceptions of nature. Here it is in Book 11 of the Prelude. There in our existence spots of time with which distant preeminence, as you get away from them, they gain an eminence, a power, retain a vivifying virtue whence our minds are nourished and invisibly repaired. That was a central belief for Wordsworth. We call it spots of time. They have a therapeutic quality to them to repair the mind when it's been damaged by loss and despair. Okay? So what would I say about it? I just quickly wrote some notes under this, right? Critics have found William believed his mind can be repaired to the faith in previous years by experiencing powerful sublime moments in nature. This anticipates the pantheism, and in my heart leaps up, and in a slumber did my spirit seal. Okay? So we've established this idea that he will seek out not only memories of former ways of perceiving nature, but future moments in nature in which he feels his mind is healed by that spiritual oneness. Okay, right. Let's look at moralism. I like to lead with this, and you can write about this when you write about moralism, that Kant helps us understand that humans should only act on a maxim that you could will to become universal law. And what that means is the moral truths, the archetypal principles that apply to literature should be able to be universalized to all humans, otherwise they're not moral truths, right? So the following moral truths govern the human experience in elegiac and manifest in elegiac stanzas. All of them do here. Humans lament loss and death. Human conscious of mortality provides a desire to live a life of consequence, to make more of your life now, certainly there. To appreciate any one emotion, we must have the full range of emotions, defines the human experience here, right? He understands that the humanizing of his soul by the death of his brother has made him more human than he was when he believed that that God's divine providence was beneficent and always positive. And then finally, human struggle to develop and sustain a faith in divine providence. All of that is here. I would particularly talk about that he ends the poem with resolve to develop fortitude and hope. And we do see the shape of these goals. And we do see the shape of these goals, and my heart leaps up, and a slumber did my spirit seal, which are coming. Okay? So, great 4 universal truths that govern the human experience manifest in this poem, and off we go into reader response. So this is, the literary equivalent of consequentialism, right? What reading has the most consequence upon you, the reader, right? Well, how does it meet your psychological needs? But remember, there are 4 steps to it. So the pre-reading expectations, there's a reading process, there are the available interpretations to the reader, and then the one that has the most resonance, the most consequence upon you. And so my pre-reading expectations were, I thought the poem would celebrate the power in the sea that's depicted in Beaumont's painting. I thought he would love the stormy sea, love the power of nature, the sublime moment of nature's great power over man. But obviously he did not. It did not, I wrote here, and it addressed how he, next slide, sorry, would have preferred a calm sea. So my expectations were not met, and I think that's significant. You can write about that. In the reading process, I personally focused on Elysian quiet. Obviously, it shows it as my connotation, because I like that calm image of the sea as representative of the calm of childhood. Right? It's heavenly, it's calm, the belief is unquestioned, the belief is unruffled. I then focused upon a deep distress as hath humanized my soul, because I knew the pain of loss of my father at the age of 11. While I did not know that I became more completely human in suffering this loss, I did. And so that's what I focused on, those two, that perfect quiet and that humanizing of my soul through loss. Available interpretations, some may argue that William is waiting on faith in God to save him from his despair, which is typical, right, of most people. My faith in God will get me through. Some may argue that William is waiting for a new love of his children to save him from despair. Some people say that new love, either a new husband or a new father or new members of the family will bring them. Even a relationship with an animal, a pet, can heal. But I argue that in his most powerful poems, Tintern Abbey, My Heart Leaps Up, and The Prelude, they indicate that the moment in nature when he intuits his soul and the oversoul in nature serve to be a balm to his loss. That is the key. The fortitude, the patient cheer comes from a sustained commitment and faith in nature to provide moments of oneness in which he intuits his immortality. And then finally, why does that most resonate with me? Why did I choose that moment? Because like William, I lost my dad when I was a boy, and I can remember seeing the ashes pour into the ocean. And from that point on, I craved scenes in nature that possess a vastness like the sea. Certainly the mountain landscapes here create a vastness like the sea. And moments when I feel more spiritual than corporeal, more spiritual than body. and when I feel that there's a presence beyond my own making and knowing. And so I resonate with Williams' pantheistic reveries as a means to heal a sense of loss. So my own personal needs, my own desire to overcome loss, forces the reading that his fortitude will come from relationship with nature more so than God, more so than future loves. Okay, I had all the methods there with elegiac stanzas, a good place to start. And then I'd probably go into Surprised by Joy and talk about the loss there with his daughter and look at the poem from the different methods there. But to get to My Heart Leaps Up, here's a great poem about pantheism as a means of healing. My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began as a child. So is it now I am a man. So be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. The child is the father of the man. I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural piety. So it's great expression of pantheism here, great expression of he will have multiple stages of his relationship with nature, but never lose his faith in nature, never lose that belief that nature will provide for him a holiness, an ability to worship the soul in nature. So just very quickly, I hit on some things. I used the definition of romanticism as it's a faith, it's a gospel, it's a belief in the natural goodness of human beings and those inner resources of imagination and feeling which, when nourished by life-giving forces of nature, can bring a joy and a sense of something ever more about to be. Great definition of romanticism that I would use to apply to this poem, because there is hope here that he will always be influenced by his faith in natural piety, his faith that there is an oversoul in nature, and that will give him great pleasure. I'd focused, formally on the paradox. The child's the father of the man. The child's relationship with nature becomes a guide for the father, for the man. I would focus on the alliteration, the so, which focuses, the alliteration does on the continuity of his relationship with nature, and I could go on. But I want to look at pantheism as an intertextual concept, right? This came from a critic. Nature can link the spirit of the human being to the larger pervasive spirit that infiltrates all things. Okay? And so great definition of pantheism, and that's what he's talking about. I wish my days to be filled with pantheistic reveries right here when he says natural piety. Notice how I cite. I use the website, even though it's from Mahoney. In Poetic Life, I say it's from the website and date last seen. Do that for all the materials you get from the website. I would also use the definition of sublime. Could be, sorry about this, but this could be in the textualism piece because it's an intentional commentary. Wordsworth said that our personal apprehension are the predominant feelings of the mind. The sublime always precedes the beautiful in making it conscious of its presence. For whatever suspends the comparing powers of the mind, the reasoning powers of the mind, possesses the mind with a feeling or image of intense unity, with a conscious contemplation of its parts, has produced the state of mind, which is the consummation of the sublime. In other words, moments of great pantheistic reverie prevent you from being able to compare this to other moments, even compare the parts within the scene that you're observing, and the predominant feeling is awe and apprehension and awareness of a power wholly beyond your ability to influence or make or even comprehend. And that's what he's seeking out as a balm to his loss. And then I would go into moralism, and I would really emphasize the idea that, humans' consciousness of mortality is applicable to others and oneself, provokes a desire to live a life of consequence. He wants to have faith in this world, in his mind, to become a sublime mind that's, as he says in Tintern Abbey, a lovely mansion for all the beauteous forms on earth, so that he can build up his human soul, build up his mind so much so that he can, either through memory or through his preparation for future moments in nature, more easily get to the sublime state of mind and awareness of a power wholly beyond him and intuit the immortality of the soul. So great stuff, right? As a solution, I could bring in Tintern Abbey, I could bring in moments from the Prelude to influence my analysis of My Heart Leaps Up. And I would also go into A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal and talk about how he is soothed by the idea that that the girl's soul, which winds up becoming his daughter, is rolled round in Earth's diurnal course with rocks and stones and trees. Not only does he feel nature's soul in powerful moments in nature, but he also, I think, beautifully indicates that one can feel that the soul of the one you have lost is rolling round in rocks and stones and trees. Wonderful, honest, intimate reaction to his ongoing relationship with nature, his ongoing relationship with divine spirit, his ongoing relationship with his own soul, as a solution, as a balm, as a salve to his despondency from the great deep losses that have defined his life, right? Losing both his parents and being nurtured by nature, losing his brother at 1805 and losing 2 children in 1812. These become the poems in which he works out his resolution, his resolve to have faith in himself, in his mind, and in nature. I hope you enjoy writing the papers, and I look forward to reading them.